You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Script reads me.
Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Yo, we trade actors, motherfucker.
Good day to you all. Welcome to the new. I'm your host, Randy Perham, and happy Motivated Monday. So, first up, let me send our condolences, thoughts, and prayers to the family of Bob Moses, Robert Moses. He was the iconic civil rights leader of the 1960s. He passed away over the weekend at the age of 86. But Mr. Moses was best known for advocating for teaching and advancing children in mathematics in school. So it's unknown what his cause of death was, but however, he was also known for his activism in getting black voters registered and pushing various types of voter drives, also known as the Mississippi Freedom Project. So, like I said, on behalf of TECN, the Exceptional Conservative Network, we extend our thoughts and prayers to his family in their time of bereavement. So, I hope you all had a great weekend. Mine was pretty quiet, actually. Just focused on getting my term paper, not done, but working on my term paper, and reading and responding in discussion boards in my class. Just a whole bunch of nothing, really, but a lot of stuff. And I broke my chair over the weekend, too. It pissed me off. The back, I just fixed it a little while ago, right before getting started. I kind of fixed it. Yesterday, I rigged it up with a bungee cord because the back keeps, like, popping back because the grooves wore out where it connects to the arm. But anyway, so we got a lot to cover today. And first up is the Olympics going woke. And it's kind of sad at the same token because the men's basketball team, the U.S. basketball team, they lost to France. It was 83-76, And this is the first time that they lost since 2004, the U.S. men's basketball team, Olympic team. And I can't help but to wonder, in conjunction with the women's U.S. soccer team losing to Sweden last week, I can't help but to wonder all this activism and protesting and, you know, trying to get on social media and other media outlets to preach about injustice and everything else. Is this detracting from their court time, their practice time, and their overall focus on the sport? Because they're taking L's left and right. But, you know, at the same token, Simone Biles, she, however, is the focused one, pretty much out of all these folks. And she's been being slighted now by the Olympics because of her performance. She dominates so bad. Well, can't say bad. I don't want to say bad. She dominates the field so well. That's the word I'm looking for. She dominates the field so well that the Olympic Committee decided to change the rules up on how they will grade her performance in scoring, because she just blows them out the water. And there's a great video here that will explain what's going on with her.
I am who I am, and I am where I am because of it.
How do you know you've become one of the all-time greats? When a sport has new rules to keep you from winning too much. That's exactly what's happening to Simone Biles. The iconic gymnast continues to push the bounds of gymnastics and physics. The 5-time Olympic medalist is so dominant that the rules of elite gymnastics intentionally put her at a scoring disadvantage. In an effort to deter other gymnasts from trying skills they are not physically capable of doing, the International Gymnastics Federation watered down the value of a new element Biles plans to do. It really shows she's in a league of her own.
One day down the road, I'm not going to be able to do it again, and I'm going to wish I could.
Ever since her debut, Simone Biles has been dominating her competition for her entire career. You may think she's already crushing her opponents, but she could be crushing her opponents by even wider margins, if the higher powers of gymnastics would let her. Even years after her monumental Olympic debut, Simone Biles is still pushing her limits. The 4-time Olympic gold medalist made history at the U.S. Classic 2021 when she landed a Yurchenko double pike vault. The feat is so challenging and dangerous that no woman had ever dared to try it in competition before her. It's a notoriously dangerous skill that takes a lot of skill to pull off. The authorities of elite gymnastics awarded Simone a score on par with many of her other, less difficult vaults. The 24-year-old gymnastics superstar pulled off a feat so notoriously complex and dangerous that no woman before her had ever attempted it in competition, but wasn't awarded for it in score. The Yurchenko double pike requires a gymnast to complete a round-off back handspring entry into the vaulting table and then execute 2 full backward rotations with legs extended before sticking the landing. Biles has spent months mastering the move in training. It's very, very challenging, and what's scary is that people can get hurt. You do a short landing, you can hurt your ankles. It's a very dangerous vault. One of Biles' coaches, Laurent Landy, said, "Biles certainly doesn't need to take the risk of this magnitude to find success at this point in her esteemed gymnastics career. But instead, she's choosing to push herself heading into the Tokyo Olympics, her final swan song." Without that motivation to reach new heights, Biles' final year as an elite-level gymnast would become very, very boring for everybody. With more world championship victories than any other athlete in the sport's history, she opened everybody's eyes to the fact that this can be done, proving females can do it too.
And I feel like that's what motivates me.
Rather than athletes earning points throughout a performance, the decision makers at the International Gymnastics Federation pre-assign scorers to routines based on the difficulty of the skills involved. Then judges evaluate execution in real time, docking points from the potential total every time a gymnast makes a mistake during their program. Every element in gymnastics is assigned a letter, which corresponds to a numerical value. An A skill is worth 1/10 of a point, and every letter in the alphabet that follows is an additional 10th. So a D skill is 4/10 of a point, while the rare J skill is worth a full point. Biles is doing 2 new skills at Worlds. a triple twisting double somersault on-floor exercise, and a double twisting double somersault dismount off a balance beam. The triple-double was valued as a J skill, while the double-double was only deemed to be an H. Because Biles regularly achieves physical feats other gymnasts can only dream of, the degree of difficulty associated with her routines, particularly on floor, balance beam, and vault, are assigned some of the highest possible scores. Biles enjoys a huge margin of error as a result, so she can get away with faltering during a performance because her floor is higher than most of her other opponents' ceilings.
It's been a lot of fun, but it's been a lot of stress too because there is not only me.
They had an open-ended code of points, and now they're mad that people are too far ahead and excelling, Biles said after the U.S. Classic. This U.S. Classic vault wasn't the first skill the 24-year-old felt was undervalued by the Federation. Ahead of the 2019 World Championships, Biles expressed how pissed off she was over the gymnastics governing body's unfair valuation of her eponymous balance beam dismount. Am I in a league of my own?
Y'all kind of get the point there as to what's going on with the dynamics of her being underscored because she is so good at what she does. And they feel that, you know, her being so talented that other people are not equally as talented. You gotta think about this, folks. Think about what they're saying here. You're an Olympic champion amongst other Olympians. That is the purpose. That is the whole point of being good at what you do, is because you made it to the Olympics. And I think the Olympic Committee and all these other international committees, these alphabet soups of Olympics, I think they forgot that part. Or they see a young black woman coming in, dominating a sport, and embarrassing the crap out of everybody else of colors. And they are not liking that. It could be that. And, you know, this recent performance of hers, that's when I saw it, I was like, whoa. And I said, I gotta share this. Check it out. Awesome. So you can see why the world is hating on her in the Olympic Committee, the Olympic world. But more importantly, it's not even important, but interestingly, I will say this. This young lady out of Costa Rica by the name of Luciana Alvarado, she did a routine that was, in my opinion, horrible. But she did this routine, and then at the end of it, I'll blow it up for you so you can see it better. At the end of her routine, she decided to hold up the Black Lives Matter fist. Now, I don't know if she got the memo or not, but I think the world, on the world stage, Black Lives Matter has lost its luster. And so for her to come, and the same with the U.S. Olympic basketball team and soccer team. You know, they're all still, you know, trying to advocate and push the whole Black Lives Matter thing. I think they're missing the memo that no one cares about Black Lives Matter anymore. The organization, even so much the movement. You know, you're seeing a shift by the black community away from Black Lives Matter, the whole mantra, because of the association with the organization. So they're just like, you know what, let's just drop it all together. Yes, Black Lives Matter, got it. But let's just leave that alone. So I think she missed that memo. Folks, we're going to jump to commercial break. We'll be right back. Keep it locked right here. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
But first, let's check in with the leader of the free world who is sane, healthy, and not in any way suffering from cognitive decline.
You got the vaccination?
Yeah.
Are you okay? I mean, you seem, no, it works. Or you know, or the mom and dad, or the neighbor, or when you go to church, or when you're. No, I really mean it. There are trusted interlocutors. Think of the people. If your kid wanted to find out whether or not there's a man on the moon or whatever, you know, something, or you know, whether those aliens are here or not. You know, who are the people they talk to beyond the kids who love talking about it?
I'm sorry. That's just, even by Joe Biden's very low standards, that was incoherent.
I thought he was on a roll. I thought he was on a roll.
He started off with asking that activist journo Don Lemon, you got the vaccination, are you okay? And then we ended up with some...
On the moon.
Very peculiar comments
he
about...
wants to make sure everyone all the way to the moon's vaccinated. It's good. He's a lovely bloke.
Well, okay, that's one interpretation, but I watched that 3 or 4 times. I have no idea what he was saying about the aliens and the walking on the moon, and how that relates to vaccinations and safety. But the man is not okay, Stephen. That's all I can say. He is not okay. And why is nobody saying this other than, you know, a few select conservative pundits? Why is nobody saying this bloke may have some deep-seated medical issues?
Because 80 million Americans voted for anyone not named Trump.
But that doesn't change the fact that that man is not okay.
Well, I think 80 million Americans wanted him ahead of, you know, a corrupt tyrant wannabe.
Please. I mean, you've gone into first-year arts student mode straight away. But I've got to say, I mean, this is why he probably was hiding in the basement throughout most of the election campaign, because that ain't good.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Hey, welcome back. That was hilarious. It's bad when Australia news, they have no chill whatsoever. I love watching Australian news. The segments they be having, you're like, man, I wish U.S. news would do their coverage like this, because this is they're pretty down the middle. You have some right-leaning journalists, pundits on there, but all in all, they give you the story and they go from there. But of note of what she was talking about, there is something more serious afoot going on here, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to understand. I want you to pay attention here. The 25th Amendment can be executed on Joe Biden at any given time, and there is not much recourse he could take to combat it. His cognitive decline, as you can see, will pave the way for Congress to act and say, okay, guy, you're done. You're done. Get out of here. Now, yeah, my prediction, and I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I know I had this in discussion with somebody else that asked me what are my thoughts about the 25th Amendment being invoked on Biden. It won't happen until after the midterm elections. And I say that going in two directions here. If the Democrats, this is a big if the Democrats keep majority of the House and gain a majority, a clear majority in the Senate, then they will invoke the 25th, because then Kamala Harris will be out of the position to be the tie-breaking vote, and she can assume the presidency and don't have to worry about the Senate coming into the Senate to cast a vote. The same can be done with a vice president successor. Don't get me wrong, if the Senate remains balanced, but the probability factor there is she's an assured vote, a guaranteed vote. Now, on the flip side, if the Republicans win the Senate and the House with a clear majority, it will be prudent, hear me out, it will be prudent for the Republicans to invoke the 25th and get Biden out of the way and let Kamala run the White House the last 2 years, because she's already in shambles and in chaos, as we all know. So this will set them up for whoever the nominee will be to be able to campaign against Kamala on the very grounds, if she is the presumptive nominee going into 24. This would give that Republican nominee enough ammunition to combat having a Kamala Harris re-election. So that is my prediction, that in either sense we can potentially see an invocation of the 25th Amendment in the at the start, or I should not start, but by the end cycle of the 22 elections. So we'll see how that goes. But speaking of elections, Adam Kinzinger, he's I'll blow this up too so you can see his quote. He's been selected to be part of Nancy Pelosi's January 6th commission. I was about to call it something else. And the only reason why he's been selected is for one simple reason. It's politics. It's politics, ladies and gentlemen. When President Trump was looking to appoint some top advisors, top slots in the Air Force, Adam Kinzinger was on the short list but was not selected. And that kind of pissed him off. He's out of Missouri. And that pissed him off. So he joins the folds of Liz Cheney to be part of this commission to investigate what happened on January 6th. And even the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, he's even like, why? Why even bother being part of this? And he's looking at trying to take recourse actions against any GOP members that take part in these committees. But I would encourage it. I'd be like, no, go ahead and be part of these committees. And if you want to sit here and pretend like you don't see the obvious evidence, then I'm going to have your ass. That's if I was a leader. I'm going to have your ass, period. Because we all know that Capitol Police was opening gates. We know staffers and Capitol Police were escorting folks through the halls. We know Antifa was involved. We already know the obvious things. Now, if you want to investigate why these coordinated efforts happened. Now, see, that won't be part of the commission. But anywho. But I would say to Adam Kinzinger that, you know, him and Liz Cheney, their days are numbered in Congress. And I would not be surprised if they do not win re-election. I already know Liz Cheney has been censored by the Wyoming GOP, and she's probably not gonna win a re-election here in 22. But Kinzinger, he's teetering those lines, so we'll see what happens. All right, folks, we're gonna let me get rid of some of this stuff because it's clogging up my getting to videos. We're gonna jump to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back, and when I come back, we're gonna get into today's deep dive about the woke culture of black politics. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Hey, welcome back. So. A friend of mine yesterday, we're going to call him Bob. Hey, Bob. I know he watches the show periodically, or he'll go back and watch the replay. But Bob asked me yesterday, he said, Randy, what is it about black people that vote for their oppressors in reference to, voting Democrat, all the time? And so I sent them a video, and I'm going to share it here with you in a second. But just to preface that, we have to understand that there's a paradigm shift that is unfolding before our very eyes. And traditionally, and when I say traditionally, the last, what's this, 2021? So the last 100 and some odd 40 years, there's been a gradual shifting in blacks going from Republican to Democrat. And like I said, I'm going to show you all this in the video. But now there's a revert going on where blacks are starting to move back to the Republican fold, and it's scaring Democrats. It's scaring them very much so. That's why they're pushing these narratives of voter suppression and voting rights and all this stuff, because it's built as a security nest to keep black voters engaged in voting for Democrats. As long as Democrats are talking about voting rights for black people are going to support the Democrat movement. But when blacks are starting to see that their votes, their voting power is not actually in jeopardy, and the laws that are being drafted or created and implemented is not actually infringing on their voting rights, then what are you really supporting? So, but I'm gonna shut up real quick and we'll let you watch this goodiness.
You actually probably have to go back over a century to begin telling the story, right? African Americans start out when they become essentially enfranchised. They do so because of the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, and therefore African Americans sort of by default become Republicans because that is the party of emancipation. The Republican Party, while it's in favor of emancipation, is not really a natural place to put African Americans, especially as the Republican Party goes through the late 1800s and early 1900s and goes through some sort of realignments inside itself and turns away from a possible progressive move with Theodore Roosevelt and becomes increasingly in the early 20th century more the party of white-collar business interest, upper-class interest. But now you get African Americans moving into the North where they can vote, and they begin to find the appeal of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal very attractive. They begin increasingly to identify with the Democratic Party. Doesn't happen overnight, right? Partisan attachments take a while to erode during the late 30s and early 40s and late 40s to turn from a party that had been held hostage to states' rights in the South to one that was willing to embrace civil rights. You see that in the behavior of Harry S. Truman, right, who's going to integrate the armed services by executive order after World War II. You see that in the 1948 Democratic Convention. Then Senator Hubert Humphrey from Minnesota gets up and says, it's time for us to walk out of the shadow of states' rights into the bright sunshine of civil rights. At the same time, the Republican Party is struggling with its history of emancipation and civil rights. You get someone like Dwight Eisenhower, who says that integration, desegregation should go slow. That sort of personifies some of this movement of the Republican Party away from its traditional belief in civil rights and extending rights to African Americans. Especially by the mid-1960s, you get Lyndon Johnson, who's going to take the lead on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and by that point, the ship is cooked, right? The Republican Party opposes it. Its standard bearer, Barry Goldwater, opposes it in 1964. He calls it a piece of communistic legislation. At that point, I think the door closes, right? At that point, African Americans who are politically active are Democrats.
All right, so let's get into it. From 1970 forward, we have what is called the Great Society programs. This sole program, slate of legislation is creating a welfare state for African Americans predominantly. But yes, everybody partakes in it. We got all that. I'm not gonna get into that. But the Great Society programs kind of solidified also the black vote for Democrats. And from there forward, you see what is called generational voting. And the generational voting is your children, if you were born 1970 after, your children just automatically vote Democrat, whether you're telling them to, whether they see it because of dinner table politics or whatever the case may be. But they are failing. These children do not actually go out and do the research and get involved in the politics themselves. They just go based on party recognition from exposure, family, friends, community. So this is where we go into generational voting. The other side of that is advocacy voting. And advocacy voting is, once again, going back to generational voting, but slightly different. Advocacy voting is you have people that's a little in tune with politics. They're more so just enamored with party politics. And this is where you get those people that scream, vote blue no matter who, vote red till you're dead. That is your advocacy voters. And these advocacy voters are probably one of your dangerous bunch of voters out there. And there's a lot of them on both sides of the aisle, both sides. Because what you get out of advocacy voters is they don't want voters to be informed on who it is that they're voting for. As long as that person has a D or an R behind their name and they're primarying against the opposite party, you need to vote for them. You need to support them. Regardless of what they're talking about, regardless of what's going on, you need to support them. That's advocacy voting. So the dangers of advocacy voting, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. The dangers of advocacy voting is what we're seeing today. Okay? The 80 million people that Australian news journalists referenced to, and the lady just laughed at them because 80 million people just didn't. But they're pointing out is that all of these people implemented advocacy voting. No one cared about the policies that he espoused. No one cared about actually what he was bringing to the table. No one even cared the fact that all the racist stuff that he was saying. They just saw he's a D, we need to support it. Period. And this goes with also local politics. We see this problem up in Alaska right now. And I've been kind of talking to folks about this, with the state politics and in the fight over the PFD. It's like, well, you kind of got yourselves into this situation. And I also talk about this with the larger Republican spectrum when it comes to rhinos. You look at the person and you see that they're a Republican, but you don't question what it is about them that's a Republican. You just know, oh, they say they're a Republican, but they don't ask questions. They don't look at platform. They don't look at their talk, their rhetoric, or their platforms, or that kind of stuff. Their policy proposals. They don't look at any of that. They just look at he's an R or he or she is a D, and boom, there you go. So that's advocacy voting, the most dangerous type of voting that's out there, and I vehemently disagree with it. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been occasions where when I get a ballot, depending on the election cycle and what's going on, I get a ballot and I look at it and I see who's on there, and I do a quick research, a quick look up of these people, and if I see that there is a pattern of party alignment, then I will go with them. But if I see that there's like, oh, they just switched over to being this party, or they're declaring themselves as unaffiliated, you kind of lost me there, because what are you hiding? So that's that part. Now, we'll talk about blind party voting. That's going back to vote blue no matter who, vote red till you're dead type of thing. You hear that term, blind party voting. A lot of black people do that, and it's not me picking on the black community, but as a political scientist, you can go and look this up yourself. The black community is the only community in America that vote one party direction overwhelmingly more so than any other demographic in America. So let me break that down for you. Black people vote about 93%. This is on a decline now. The last numbers I looked at was around 89, 90%. Vote Democrat, black people. you have the Asian community, Hispanic, white community, other. They're relatively evenly split, 50-50, 45-55, whatever. But they're relatively split in voting for two parties. But blacks are the sole community that will vote 90%. So there's a lopsided political viewpoint there. And there's a saying that I like to throw around and say is, I said there's a difference between being politically black and ethnically black. So, but that's blind party voting, and when we're also we're seeing a paradigm shift with the candidacy arena coming along, where candidates are now, because they're declaring themselves unaffiliated or independent, they will intentionally lie about supporting certain policies and what have you, just to split the vote. And this is another thing that I'm kind of teaching folks and talking to people about, is pay attention to verbiage. Pay attention to the harping on certain things. Because nobody's like enamored or in love with certain talking points. The America First agenda, or Trump this, Trump that. You gotta be careful with those kind of people. Same thing with those that, black, let's defund the police. Yes, I fully support defund. You gotta be careful with folks like that, because there's this thing called flip-flopping, and they will say this to appease to the extreme side of the house to get their votes, and then when they're elected, they kind of dial back and they back away from all that rhetoric, and they actually start showing their true political colors. And then you're sitting there mad, like, they're not pushing the policies that we talked about and blah, blah, blah. Well, you didn't vet your candidates properly. And this is the problem. And so, and I tell people, I said, please, I make myself fully available to answer questions and talk about policies and everything else, and I put it in writing so you can show it and do whatever you want to do with this. And Randy said this. Yeah, I did. Because that's what I believe. So, but you're not going to find that with a lot of candidates. Matter of fact, you're probably not going to find that with any other candidate that's going to make statements or push something and be totally adamant about it in light of or in spite of new information that may warrant a positional shift in the matter. So it's okay to flip-flop on certain issues in light of new information. You may say, oh, well, had I known that, then this is how I would have decided this position. But because I didn't know, this is why I advocated for whatever, X, Y, Z. So there's that. Then let's look at the true shifting as to why black people are now reshifting back to being Republican. Look at what's going on in the southern border. Look at what's going on in these inner cities around the United States. You have a increased spike in crime. You have an increased spike in prices, inflation, and you have an increased influx of illegal immigrants that are being literally bussed and flown into these locations and taken care of by alphabet soup agencies over black people. Now, there's a surge in population density of Hispanics over blacks. Blacks are now, they've been stagnant at 13% of the population, the U.S. population, while Hispanics have increasingly grown. They were at 17%. They're now estimated to be around close to 20% of the population. So the Hispanic community is the largest minority community in America right now. And black people are like, well, we really don't have, this is some black people that I talk to, they're like, well, we really don't have a place in the political spectrum when it comes to getting a party to advocate for us. And as I had to explain to them, no, you don't. You technically never did. But okay, you get some crumbs thrown at you here and there, and we call it a win. Got it. But when you look at the overall dynamics of policy pushing by Democrats and by Republicans, Republicans give a more universal policy position that's inclusive to anybody who is willing to try it, versus Democrats who push policies that are intersectional specific, i.e. LGBTQ rights, Asian rights, black rights, the so on and so forth. So they create these pockets of policies that's aimed specifically for communities of different, like I say, intersections, and people get kind of confused with how does this policy apply to me? How do I fit into this mode, or what tangibles can I get from these? Versus Republican policies, it's, hey, we're creating jobs by opening up, this sector of land for oil and drilling and blah, blah, blah. That's not specific to a color. Anybody can apply for those jobs. Versus, we're going to create policies, specifically to get this minority group further access to this program or to the institutions and this, and so you're cutting everybody else out of the mold there. So that's where the confusion within the Democrat side of policy making comes from. And there's that disenfranchisement within other groups within that party. Because, matter of fact, I just finished Critical Race Theory by Kimberly Crenshaw, the kind of like the Cliff Note version book of it. I just finished that, and she talks about in that book, not Kimberly Crenshaw, excuse me, Harris. Kimberly Harris, Pamela Harris, something like that. Harris, it's something Harris. She talks about intersectionality. And there's another book out there that I just finished a few months ago talking about intersectionality and how it is a problem. You join a group that's advocating for women's rights, but being that you're a black woman and you are a lesbian, their policy, their advocacy mission is more specific to job creation or closing the wage gap for women. And you coming in there, you make enough money, you make good money and everything else, and you're not really in the mode of worrying about that because you have your own business and what have you. Where do you fit in to get something that you're passionate about advocated for within this women's group? Well, you're not part of this. Your issues are not part of our equation. So either you're going to support us or going about your day. That is the problem with advocacy groups, lobbyist groups, and what have you. And on the left, and on the right, they're a little bit more broader spectrum. They do have their specifics, but their specifics are not delineated to or relegated to just that group. They can kind of broaden out and say, okay, yeah, we want gun rights. Well, this doesn't speak to just white men. Black men own guns too. Women own guns too, of all colors and stripes. So you're more focused. You're focused in that dynamic when it comes to gun rights. So that's just my take on all of that. But going back to what I said earlier about blacks slowly moving away, they're actually it's not even slowly. They're moving away quite rapidly, moving away from the Democrat Party and jumping back on board with becoming conservatives. The difference between conservative Republicans, conservative Democrats, which is more so moderate Democrats, you have to pay attention to that as well. But this lady here is a chapter leader for Blexit out of Tennessee, and she talks about the destruction of critical race theory. Check it out.
My name is Fallon Clark, and I am representing Blexit, Tennessee. I'm just going to hop right in. So, CRT, for such a complex, controversial topic, I have a very simple question. Why? What is the purpose? What does it solve? What does it actually teach? Imagine two childhood friends, Jenny and Sharon. They've been friends since they were 2 years old, sharing everything, birthdays, sleepovers, and a number of firsts. They grow up and enter the public school system where CRT is being taught. Jenny is reminded she's white and learns about the atrocities committed to maintain her white privilege. And Sharon is reminded she's black and every shortcoming and challenge she faces is because of Jenny's white privilege. Tensions rise, hostility creeps in, and just like that, the friendship is over. Now, perhaps my example is a little extreme, but not too far-fetched. It actually sounds familiar. Children don't see race until you and I show it to them. So I can tell you what CRT teaches. Critical race theory does nothing but perpetuate the same narrative. It plants the same seed of divisiveness. So why do you want to keep telling the same distorted and divisive story, and especially to our children in the form of education? I ask again, why? Does it help our lagging test scores? Does it equip our children with the tools needed to enter the real world? And by real world, I mean workforce and making a better living, financial literacy, and proper decision making. Does it teach our children to value one another regardless of skin color? Does it teach our children to take pride in our country, a country where a man can be a slave, come from nothing, yet give birth to a generation of children that have everything? I remember conversing amongst a group of black friends, and we all reflected on our own childhood and how black history was a small section in a history book comprised of only slavery, Jim Crow laws, and civil rights. Slavery ended in 1865. 146 years worth of information since then, and yet it's filled with nothing but slavery, trauma, inferiority, and that's all the history anyone ever shoves in front of us. Again, why? What is the purpose? CRT is not an accurate account of black history or American history for that matter, and it is imperative we do not allow it to pass as such. I'm sure everyone here is aware of the 2018 and 2019 state report card. That's the only one I could find available online. Less than 33% of Hamilton County students were found to read at grade level. When critical race theory is mentioned, the average individual cannot define it, and our children most certainly cannot define, let alone comprehend its complexities. I value teachers tremendously. My own father is an educator, but teachers are teachers, and they do not, and nor does anyone on the board replace the parents. Many of you may be thinking, CRT is banned in the state of Tennessee. This is not a problem in the Hamilton County School District. Well, I do have with me an assignment given to my son directly following the banning of CRT in our state. He was provided with the banning article with a writing prompt, "What is the importance of CRT in the public school system?" This is a problem, and I would like it noted. The focus should be our core subjects, subjects that are not excelling in language arts, math, science, and social studies, with the addition of trades, work readiness, and financial literacy. And let's be clear, the fact we are not excelling in these subjects has nothing to do with race. My son is in the gifted program. He has a 4.0. He scored a 25 on the ACT as a sophomore with absolutely no prep. That leads me to the importance of school choice, and is highlighted in the HCDE mission statement, the environment of our schools, and how all of this correlates with critical race theory. I grew up in Malin, Tennessee, graduated from Malin High School. At the time I attended, blacks made up 15% of the school population. Whites were dominant. As I reflect on my experience, not once did I feel inferior, as CRT suggests. Not once was I oppressed. The bar and expectations that were set at the time were for all students, regardless of race. I left the public school system and my family knowing I could accomplish anything, and my skin color was the very least of my concern. Fast forward to having a child who attended Orchard Knott Middle and currently attends Brainerd High School. In both instances, he has been stereotyped, bar lowered, viewed as being at a disadvantage, and even labeled with phrases like, "He's not like the rest of them," by an actual teacher. CRT would do nothing but reinforce this culture of inferiority and further alienate our black children. We must not teach children that any challenge We must not teach black children that any challenge or burden that they may face comes from white people. We must not teach white children that they are the cause of the plight in black America. We must teach all children, regardless of color, you are the writer of your own life, and any system set in place that threatens your dignity and freedom, you have the power to eliminate, one voice and one vote at a time. I urge you not to let CRT into our schools, stand firm on the Tennessee banning of CRT, and hold every single educator accountable who has the audacity to take matters into their own hands. Thank you.
Bravo. bravo, bravo, bravo. I salute, commend, and thank that woman of courage, of presenting that beautiful piece. But folks, excuse me. Okay, there we go. But folks, this is what I'm talking about. We have the woke Olympics still trying to oppress people because of their talents. And then you have people, the woke on the left once again, that are pushing curriculum onto our children, our impressionable, young-minded children, about being oppressed and who's an oppressor and what have you, but not giving credence to the fact that we all have capabilities and talents that go above and beyond what may be considered normal and what have you, and we all can strive and excel in our environments if we're given that opportunity and not being told or being shown that we can't because of the color of our skin. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running for the United States Congress. Just retired, did 22 years in the military. Published author. Finishing up my master's degree. At what juncture in my life can I really sit here and advocate or talk about and say, you know, I've been oppressed? I can't speak for what my father has been through in his life. I can't speak to what my grandfather, my great-grandfather, so on and so forth, what they experienced in life. I can only speak my truth and what I experienced. And you can only do the same. So for us to peddle these narratives, these subjective narratives at that, to make it seem like it's everybody, it's ignorant. There's no other way of putting it. It's ignorant. And so this is why I want to talk about being woke today, because there is an awakening happening in America. There is an awakening happening, and you're going to see it in 2022. Whether Democrats maintain control of Congress or they lose it, you're still going to see a major paradigm shift in the political divide opening up and showing who's on what side. And you're going to see that a lot of minorities will be on the right, and these radical liberal folks will be standing on the left looking crazy and trying to figure out what the hell just happened, because they thought that they were giving in to what it is that other people wanted to keep them on their side. And that's just simply not the case. Folks, I'm going to jump out of here. You can pick up my book, The New You, Now Quit the Wisdom, on Amazon, e-Kindle format. And you can follow me on these new social media platforms. I keep running across new ones every day almost, it seems. I'm on, it's called Caucus Room. You might not be able to find me because I won't be able to find you. But I'm still tinkering around trying to figure that thing out. But I think it's just more local politic stuff. But Caucus Room, check it out for conservatives. You do go through a verification process to make sure that you are actual, but you'll see. One getter at rperm. See, MeWe, Gab, Twitter, Facebook. I have a new page on Facebook. It is Randy Perm 2. So that is me, folks. So don't you stop inboxing me and asking me. I still go to my old page. I post something controversial there, and I tag my new page. So, you know, if it gets shut down or it gets blocked and banned or whatever, I'm still functional on the other side. I'm learning how to navigate around these things. But if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I very much appreciate it. If you want to support our show, The New You, Now Quit the Wisdom, through the Central Conservative Network, you can do so. Cashapp, PayPal, RPURHAM, for US, the $ in front of for Cashapp and the @ for PayPal. You can do that. If you want to be a guest on the show, reach out to me, let me know. We can coordinate that. And also, you can go to my website, rpermforus.com, and support my congressional campaign. Thank you all. See you all Friday, God willing. God bless you all, and have a fantastic week. Take care. God bless.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.